Next chapter, I hope my phone keeps its battery. St. Denis, Paris. The government subsidised apartment had a small back garden area. She sat there this morning, coffee in hand, holding a picture of him in her other hand. It was a picture taken on her phone before she left Aleppo with her children. She'd been meaning to print it out and frame it. The early morning was their time to catch up on the events of the day before. For 20 years they had coffee. One day he'd gone to work without coffee and she made him come home to have some. It was at this most special time they would talk before the children woke. Now this photograph was all she had of him, his grey and black hair, beard smiling through glass. She placed the phone down beside 2 cups of coffee, both of which she would drink, and looked up to the sky. It was the only thing that was the same as home. The smells, the air, the people, places, all foreign. Only the sky was a familiar friend. Hassan was the first to wake and join her in the seat that should have held his father. She kissed him and he sat. His thick black hair stood on end. She tried to fix it, but he pushed her hand away, ever so respectfully. You must look respectable and blend in some. French boys don't have messed hair, Mom. Actually, I added that, Mom. He just said French boys don't have messed hair. Besides, you will not blend in very well, he said, lightly tugging on the end of her hijab. The civil war between the disrespectful teenage boy and the man who would maintain his mother's honor was won by the latter this morning. Sorry, Mother. We must wake the girls and get outside. We cannot avoid it forever. She woke 3 daughters and baked fresh bread and dough she had made the previous evening, and had her oldest daughter fry some eggs. After breakfast, they ventured out into a Parisian morning in the old parish of St. Denis. While building and street were foreign, the people passing by were familiar. Women with hijabs, men with taqiyas. I actually don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I know I spelled it right. It would be a Muslim man's head dress past them. Miriam wanted to eventually visit the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame and Champs-Élysées, but today would be small steps near home. Boarding a bus, fiddling with foreign coins, struggling through what little French they studied on their journey here, and being looked at with eyes of suspicion were bigger steps for future days. They passed a coffee shop that was owned by their father's cousin, who had left for Paris years previously. Thank God we have some blood here, she said when they first arrived in Paris. You go, be with your cousin. We will walk around, she said to Hassan. As Hassan entered the coffee shop, older men sitting at the table nearby looked around at him. Assalamu alaikum, one of the men said. Wasalam, I should probably practice this for the audio. I believe it's written properly, but if you happen to be Arabic or Muslim and please correct my pronunciation. Wa alaikum salam. He returned the greeting. "Cuz," shouted the trendy young man behind the counter as he wiped down the espresso machine. "Come around, I will put you to work." Hassan smiled. "There it is." "What?" asked Hassan. "Your smile. I have not seen it in a while." An older man approached and another ordered tea. Hassan made the tea for him and brought it to the table along with some figs. Hassan thanked the men and walked back towards the counter. The men got up to leave. One of the men looked at Hassan and smiled. Who is that man, cousin?" "Oh, a customer, a good man. He is from Iraq. He has lived here for a few years. He is a kind man." "Are you asking me?" "No, I am telling you. I can see it in his face. He reminds me of father." That chapter, St. Denis, Paris, is introduces a new character who I think may play a bigger role if there's a sequel. That's where I see him fitting in, and it's a storyline of a Muslim family who's coming into Paris, and their difficulty. It comes directly from actually a PBS special I watched that was so impactful of a Syrian family who moved from Syria, and without the husband, the dad was gone. They were pretty sure that idiot who is now in Russia. Idiot's a light word for the guy. that he killed the dad. But the scene of her having the coffee, and she'd have the 2 coffees and she'd look at his face, that actually came directly from the documentary about the foreignness of Paris. And as she'd walk through the streets, she'd say to the kids, they think we're terrorists, and it captures her anxiety. The documentary does. But I just remembered I wanted to capture that in fiction, because it was so beautiful, sad, like a terrible beauty. It was, because the way she would describe her morning routine and what her husband would do. And actually in the documentary, there was one morning he got up early for work and he missed the coffee time with her, and she called him. He was an engineer, and she made him come back to have coffee. And yeah, that was lovely. And then I injected some of my own stuff when I was a foreigner in Chicago, in the first page of that chapter. When I first came to Chicago, it was very foreign. Everything was foreign. The only thing, I remember looking at the moon and the clouds, and they were familiar, but everything, like the air smelled differently, everything was different, the eggs were different, the butter was different, everything tasted different. Nothing compared to what this woman in this documentary would have gone through, of course, but still, I kind of inserted some of that foreign feeling that I had felt into her story. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that chapter. It was short, but I enjoyed writing it.